welcome to CrimeDivers. I'm Laura.
And I'm Jill.
And welcome back.
Hello, everybody.
So, for everybody or anybody that's been listening to us, you'll know we're still in the middle of our little mini-series here about the...
Life and Crimes of Shelly Knotek.
Yes, so this is part 4
Yeah.
that we're on. So hopefully if you have started with us on the series, you're still with us and you're still interested to see where it's going to go. I mean, I don't know how much worse it can get because it's been pretty horrific already.
Yeah.
But I'm assuming that, there's still more.
Obviously, there's still more to come.
There's still more to come.
So I'll just give a quick recap. Kathy is now gone. They abused her to death, basically.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
So she's gone. Shane has ran away.
Mm-hmm.
And Nikki is now living, she's got a job in Baskin & Robbins and cleaning a motel, and she's got a wee trailer to herself, so she's out of there. Mm-hmm. So,
let's dive back in.
We're going to dive into part 4. So, unfortunately now that Shelly didn't have Kathy, Shane or Nikki to abuse anymore, her focus shifted to Sammy. Mm-hmm. Sammy, as I've said before, she'd been previously being treated much better than the others, but not anymore.
No, she was top of the list.
Yeah, she had been hiding her bruises and not telling anyone about the abuse. From the outside, she was a happy girl. She was pretty. She was funny. She got attention from the boys at school. She had lots of friends. But by her senior year, she'd had enough of lying all the time. Like, if a teacher asked why she was late, she would say it was because my mum made me sleep outside last night. Mm-hmm. Or if she asked where her homework was, she would say that her mum had thrown it away. Or when she was told if she didn't bring back her library books, she would be charged. And she said, oh, my mum burned them. Mm-hmm. So the school counsellor pulled her for a chat one day and told her that they'd been listening to what she'd been saying. Mm-hmm. And they were going to report the claims as they were worried about her. And also they knew that she had a little sister at home as well.
Yeah.
So they said that they were going to make arrangements to have Tori removed from the home. Mm-hmm. But Sammy was like, oh, shit. Like, she was happy that they believed her. Mm-hmm. But then she was like...
panicked.
Shit's really going to hit the fan.
Yeah.
And as the counsellor was like, right, I'm going to call your mum. And he went to, like, lift the phone. And Sammy panicked. And she was like, no, I made it all up. Mm-hmm. She later said that she was just too scared of her mum. Mm-hmm. She was scared of what she would do to her, so she just couldn't go through with it, which she just got so close
I know.
to telling.
But then the thing is, like, for me, the counsellor there shouldn't really phone the mum, because if the mum's the abuser, then...
I mean, I don't know what the intent of the phone call to the mum was.
True, I mean, obviously, yeah, but I mean, you'd think that if she's saying all these things about, it's my mum's fault about the books, my homework, etc., then... I would think the last thing the counsellor should do is phone her mum, because obviously her mum's going to deny it. She's going to be like...
Well, I mean, maybe they thought they had to speak to the mum first before going to, like, social services or something, because
but then
to give the mum the opportunity to give her side of the story, because remember, some kids do lie. Look at Shelly herself. Uh-huh. She lied and said that her dad... raped her when she was 15, so...
Oh, yeah, I get it.
Maybe, I don't know. I honestly don't know.
I just think, because obviously we'd be worried for her welfare if you've... because, say, for instance, he did actually get to phone Shelly, speak to her, and then, of course, if Sammy's got to go home, then what's the repercussions for her?
Well, maybe that wasn't the option. Maybe it was just... giving her a heads up that they were going to phone social services, so no matter what, they were still going to get the social services involved. Maybe I don't know. But yeah, I mean, unfortunately, Sammy just couldn't go through with it. Mm-hmm. Sammy had a boyfriend at that time, and he knew what was going on at home. So when he dropped Sammy home at night, he would keep his headlights on until he saw her going into the house, and then he would leave.
Right.
If Sammy was locked out, and he would just keep honking his horn until Shelly let Sammy in. So he's like, no, you will let your daughter in. Yeah, but unfortunately, like, Sammy, sorry, I got distracted there. So he did it one night, but as soon as he left, Shelly told Sammy she was sleeping outside. Because like, right, okay, I'll let you in, but as soon as your boyfriend goes away, you're sleeping outside. But Sammy stood up to her and says, no, I'm not, it's too cold and you can't make me. But Shelly threw a glass of water at Sammy and shoved her outside into the freezing cold and locked the door.
That's awful.
Sammy ran over a mile to her boyfriend's house, and every time she saw a car coming, she had jumped into a ditch just in case. It was her mum hunting her down, and sure enough, when she got to her boyfriend's street, there was Shelly driving along looking for her. But Sammy managed to get into her boyfriend's garage without being seen, and she let Shelly into hide from her mum.
Right.
So this is just history is repeating.
Yeah, totally. She just moves on to the next person.
The next victim.
Yeah.
Dave later said that he had no idea that Shelly was being abusive to Sammy and Tori.
Come on.
He thought that she would never hurt them. And I think because she hadn't been hurting them before, he thought naively that she wouldn't hurt them. But the only reason she wasn't hurting them was because she had victims to concentrate on.
Exactly. So the fact that, he would know that, obviously Kathy's dead, Shane has gone, Nikki is gone as well, then surely automatically, well, he's seen the pattern, surely. So you think that, well, I would never say never with her,
I think he just didn't want to...
Not believe it.
To believe it, yeah. I think that's probably what it was. And, even Sammy would tell him what was going on, but he called her a storyteller. He was like, oh no, Sammy's just a storyteller, and wouldn't believe it. And I'm like... sort of along the lines of what you've just said there, he's seen the pattern. So surely if his child, as you said, we know that sometimes kids lie, but when there's already been abuse in that family, then why are you not believing her?
Well, exactly.
Because there's a good chance that it's the
truth. You've participated in
the abuse. Yeah, of course.
Then they have, I just didn't buy that one. That's ridiculous.
Yeah. So even the day that Sammy graduated from high school, she was covered in bruises from Shelly beating her. And Dave still wouldn't believe that Shelly had inflicted the bruises on her. He said that Sammy was a daredevil, a risk taker, so she was always hurting herself. So she was always covered in bruises. And I'm like, I get that. I'm always covered in bruises, but I'm sure not to the extent that she was covered in bruises.
Yeah, I mean, you're right. I mean, you can hurt yourself fine, and we all get covered in bruises from various things. So yeah, a few bruises here and there, that's nothing to worry about. But if she's covered, I mean, when you're saying covered, to me that sounds like they're just...
And she's telling him that she has been abused. But yeah, I mean, I've got bruises all over me. It's my dog that abuses me. That's why I've got bruises all over me, because of her.
Yeah, well, there's me that just falls over plat pots.
Well, or we both just fall over things and walk into things because we're both very clumsy.
Well, exactly.
So, in the summer, because obviously she's graduated high school now, so in the summer of 1997, Sammy decided that she wanted to leave. She wanted to go to college. But Shelly, why did I keep getting her name wrong? Shelly had sabotaged her enrolment forms, so she had missed the enrolment date. So she was like, great, I can't go to bloody college now. So she didn't know what she was going to do or where she was going to go, but she knew that she had to leave. She was like, I need to get out of here. So she made a plan with her friend that one day she was going out shopping with Shelly and Tori. So she arranged with her friend Lauren that she was basically going to pack all her stuff up, and then Lauren was going to break into the house.
Right.
I'm sure she probably left a window open for her or something like that. Lauren was going to break into the house and take all her stuff and take it back to her house while Sammy was out shopping. And then Sammy was going to meet her at her house later, just so that Shelly wouldn't see her leaving with all her bags.
Aye.
Basically, that's what the plan was.
Right, okay.
So Sammy told Tori that if she didn't come back later that day to look for a note under her pillow, and that she wasn't going to show it to anyone else. So after they'd been shopping, Sammy checked that all her stuff was... So she went back home with them, with her mum and sister. Her stuff was all gone, so she was like, right, we're all going to plan. So she said to her mum that she had to go and pick Lauren up, her friend Lauren, because Lauren had run out of gas. So she's like, I'm just going to go and pick her up. And her mum was like, right, okay, that's fine. So she went to Lauren's and she stayed there for a day, and then the following day she went to her boyfriend's for a night. So in the meantime, she talked to Nikki and asked for her advice, and Nikki told her to call their grandmother, Lara. So she did, and Lara was like, come and stay with me, She still didn't know any of what was going on, but she obviously knew kind of what, to an extent, what Shelly was like, so she would understood that things weren't great at home. So when Sammy told her that she'd left, she was like, yeah, come and stay here. But she couldn't take her car. Sammy couldn't take her car because she'd heard that Shelly had reported it stolen, because obviously Shelley was looking for her, and so she'd reported the car stolen, so she couldn't go anywhere. So Sammy's boyfriend's mum, so she kind of knew bits and pieces, so she's like, I'll take you. I'm happy for you to get away from your mum, so I will take you. But like, what actually, I mean, as I said, she knew bits and pieces, but one night Shelley had actually called the boyfriend's mother in the middle of the night, woke her up, and she was asking how much money her and her husband made. In the middle of the night.
Okay,
I mean, you shouldn't be asking that at any time.
No, absolutely not. But,
but she called her in the middle of the night to ask her how much money her daughter's boyfriend's parents made.
Right, okay.
So the mother, she told her it was none of her business and she hung up. But she obviously realised what a fruit lip Shelley was. So she was like, yeah, get in the car, I'll take you, no problem.
Yeah.
So
Sammy.
I know I keep getting names wrong. Sammy stayed at Lara's for the whole summer and it was one of the happiest times of her life. So meanwhile, Shelley was trying to get Nikki to come home. She was being all nice and saying, oh, you know, I'll let you sleep in the house. Oh, great, your mother's actually letting you sleep in the house. Well done.
I know.
You know, everything's going to be okay. And a police officer even turned up at Nikki's trailer once asking if she was okay. And Nikki's like, yeah, I'm fine, why? And she's like, oh, your mum's really worried about you.
Oh.
You know, and she wanted a welfare check done on you, you know, and she's like, I'm fine, you know, she was, you know.
Fuck off.
Nikki wasn't falling for this bullshit act.
Quite right, I'm thankful.
Of her mum, you know, her mum was just trying to make sure oh, come on, come home, I'll be nice to you.
Back. It's just somebody to abuse.
And then a phone call came in. No, sorry, totally missed a bit there. So it's been a long morning so far. Yeah, so one day someone threw a brick through the window of Baskin and Robbins where Nikki worked.
Right.
She wasn't on shift at the time. Then a phone call came in,
right.
Accusing Nikki of throwing the brick. But she knew it was her dad. It was Dave. She knew it was her dad that had thrown it. Shelley had told him to throw a brick through the window, accuse Nikki so that Nikki would lose her job and she would have to move back home.
That's awful.
I'm
assuming it wasn't believed that it was her then.
I'm assuming not. I mean, like, they didn't have any evidence, you know. So, and the reason that her parents wanted her home was because they were scared that now that she had her own independence that she might talk. I don't think it was so much that she wanted her victim. I mean, she maybe wanted her victim back as well. But I think she just wanted the control.
Yeah.
And so that if she was home, she could keep an eye on her. She could keep her at home. She could stop her talking.
Yeah.
But now that she's free and got her independence, there's every chance that she could talk. And who would blame her?
Well, yeah, true.
So after that, Nikki actually, she called... So I don't know if she actually did lose her job or not, but she called Lara, our gran, and asked if she could come and stay with her and work beside her in the nursing home where she worked. And Lara was delighted, and she was like, oh, Sammy's here as well, because I think even though Sammy had spoken to Nikki and Nikki had told her to phone the grandmother, I don't know if she actually realised that she'd actually went through with it and was there for whatever reason. So so Lara said that Sammy was there as well, so Nikki's like, well, that's it, that I'm sold. Like, she was desperate to see Sammy, because at this point she hadn't seen her in nearly a year. So she jumped on the next bus and went to her grandma's. So Nikki got a job as a nurse's aide and she loved it. The money was better than the jobs that she'd had before, and she was away from both of her parents, so she couldn't be happier. That was until the nursing home started getting anonymous phone calls saying that Nikki was being unkind to the patients and not doing her job properly. Nikki and Lara couldn't understand who would be complaining about her because she got on really well with her patients and the families. You know, didn't seem to be a problem. Then Dave started turning up in the car park. He wouldn't say anything. He would just either sit in his truck or stand beside the bushes. It was like he was trying to intimidate her, and she was scared that he might abduct her.
Yeah.
He would sometimes follow her when she was driving, so she'd have to, like, drive here, there, and everywhere, you know, like, try to get rid of him. And she was terrified that her mum had sent him to get her, and she would end up like Kathy, basically.
Yeah.
But I don't know why he was following Nikki, because it was actually Sammy that Shelley had sent him to find. She wanted Sammy back.
Yeah.
And when she found out that Nikki, Sammy and Lara were all together, she was absolutely fuming.
Yeah.
She hated them being together because, you know, we're adults now, and she was scared of them reporting all the abuse from all over the years.
Yeah.
She didn't want her kids back.
No.
She just wanted to stop them from talking.
Yeah. Well, you should just fucking not abuse them, and then we don't have to talk about.
Or anybody else.
Well, exactly.
So Sally, why am I getting my names mixed up?
I don't know.
Shelly heard that Sammy and her boyfriend were going to an open day at a church camp. So she sent Dave to go and get Sammy and bring her home. So Dave turned up. Well, actually, before that, he told Shelly that he was like, can we not just leave the girls alone? Just let them grow up.
Yeah.
If they want to be away from us, that's fine. Let them grow up. Let them have their own lives. But Shelly was like, nah, she has to come home because she might tell.
Right.
So Dave did go to the open day, and he found Sammy, and they went for a chat. He told her that Shelly was worried sick, and that she had to come home, but she told him that she didn't want to come home, and a lot of that had to do with Kathy and what had happened to Kathy.
Yeah.
Her parents had thought or assumed that Sammy didn't know what had happened to Kathy. That she hadn't realised what had gone on that night. They didn't know that she had actually seen Kathy's body before they buried her.
She just snuck downstairs.
Yeah, she had snuck downstairs, and after it actually happened, Sammy had tried to convince herself that what her parents were saying was true. Kathy has ran away with her boyfriend, and obviously her way of coping and like trying to deal with it, but deep down she always knew what had happened. And so she told Dave that. She was like, look, Dad, I know what happened to Kathy. I was there, I saw it, I remember things, and that's why I don't want to come home. And she also told him, because if you remember, Shelley's been telling him that she had cancer, and he still thinks that she's got cancer.
Oh, yes.
And she was like, there's no way that Shelley has cancer. And Dave was like, yeah, she does. She's really sick. She's got cancer. And Sammy was like, she doesn't. If she did, she would be dead by now. She's had terminal cancer since I was a kid. Like, have you ever been to any of her appointments? And, this, that, and the next thing. And he was like, no, but, as what he'd said to Lara the years before,
I've driven her to the hospital.
That he would drop her off at the hospital, and he would wait in the waiting room and all that. But he had never actually been in and seen a doctor with her. He'd never seen a medical bill, So he still believed
that she had cancer.
Yeah, but Sammy was like, no, she does not have cancer, and he broke down and started crying, and Sammy could see that he was a broken man. He was. So Sammy said that the only way that she would go home was if Shelley agreed to get the paperwork done so that she could go to college. So she would, technically, she would go home, but then she'd be away at college during the week, I think, and maybe go home at the weekends.
Yeah.
So Dave left, and when Sammy got back to Lara's, she called Shelley, and she said, right, okay, I'll come home if you sort out the paperwork, and I want financial support whilst going to college.
Yeah.
So, of course, Shelley tried to get out of that. She was like, oh, money's short, my marriage isn't going very well, it might end up in divorce, and I'm not feeling very well because my cancer's back. But Sammy had found her voice by now, and she knew what she wanted. She wanted to go to college. She didn't care about any bullshit excuse that her mum tried to give her. She told Shelley that she wouldn't tell anyone about the abuse if she just let her go to college. That's all she wanted. She just wanted to go to college. And that worked. Shelley was so scared of being found out that by the time Sammy went home at the end of the summer, she had not only filled in the paperwork, but she'd handed it in as well. Oh, right. So everyone was all set for Sammy to go to college. So when Sammy arrived home, like as I said, she went home at the end of the summer, and she was with her boyfriend. He must have came and picked her up from her grandma's. So when they got home, Shelley came to the door. She had again shaved off her eyebrows, and she had the white powder on her face again, and she shook her head, and she was like, the cancer's back. And Sammy and her boyfriend actually had to stop themselves from laughing because it was just so pathetic. They knew that she didn't have cancer, and obviously the white powder on her face with the shaved eyebrows just looked absolutely ridiculous.
Yeah.
Like, how would anybody believe?
Yeah, exactly. That's just ridiculous. Like, well, but your hair, like, you can shave your eyebrows, but you can't lose your hair. I mean, come on.
And anybody can see. Do you know what I actually used to do? I did that a few times when I was younger, when I wanted to do off school, and I would tell my mum and dad that I wasn't feeling very well, and I'd put talcum powder on my face to make myself look pale. They never fell for it. They could always see that I had powder on my face.
I'm not surprised.
Yeah, it's obvious when you've got some kind of makeup on your face to make you look pale.
Yeah.
When her boyfriend left, so she obviously just dropped her off.
Although I'm still surprised, like I know she obviously got the college thing out of it, but I'm still surprised she actually agreed to go home after breaking away.
Well, yeah, but she's not going to be home very much. She's only going to be at the weekends and stuff, and she needs her education. You know, she's like, I need my education, then I can definitely leave for good.
Yeah,
so, as bad as it would have been, I can understand it, but yeah, I mean, it must have took a hell of a lot for her to go home. Because she would have known that Shelly wouldn't have changed.
Yeah.
So when the boyfriend had left, Shelly started shouting at Sammy, saying, your dad told me that you don't think I have cancer. Well, look at me. I'm losing my hair. And Sammy just shouted back at her, I know you don't have cancer. I know Kathy is dead, and I know you killed her. And of course, Shelly shouted back that she didn't kill Kathy, and that Kathy had choked on her own vomit. But Sammy was like, yeah, that's because you abused her. And then Shelly actually said sorry. She apologised and said that things had got out of control. But she was like sorry for a hot minute, and then she was back to her normal self.
Yes.
So the Knoteks were struggling with money. Dave was working as much as he could, and he was sleeping in his car. So how is this man surviving? I have no idea.
I have no idea.
Shelly wasn't paying the bills. She kept making excuses to the companies about why she hadn't paid bills, such as her daughter had cancer, her husband had a heart attack, her father was ill.
God's sake.
But she was managing to go shopping, no problem.
Oh.
Dave didn't know this, as she had removed him as a signatory on their checking account. So he was barely functioning at work, as surely all the years of sleeping in a tent, sleeping in a car, that's got to be interfering with his sleep and his body as well, because obviously we're getting older as well. And I mean, I know what it's like if if you're not sleeping in a comfy bed, if you just fell asleep in the chair or something like that, you end up aching, don't you?
Definitely, yeah. That's awful.
So he just wasn't doing great at all, and he wasn't seeing any of his own money. All of his money was getting sent back to Shelly, and then but here's her shopping and not paying the bills and getting them into debt. She even managed to get $36,000 in loans that Dave didn't know about. So they just had debts here, there, and everywhere. For fuck's sake. She just went shopping constantly and spent everything they had. She bounced checks here, there, and everywhere. And when she had no money left, she went to the bank and withdrew money from her daughter's accounts. And actually, years later, when Sammy tried to get an apartment, after obviously years later after college and whatnot, she tried to get an apartment. Her application was refused because she had bad credit. There was a debt of over $30,000 associated with her social security number, but it was Shelley's name on the account. So she had used her own daughter's number, social security number, to rack up thousands of dollars in debt.
I mean, I'm not surprised.
No, I know.
I mean, the type of woman that she is, that's just the type of thing she'd do. But still, it's shocking that you would do that to your own kid. But then, I mean, look what else she's done to her own kids.
Well, yeah, exactly. So after Sammy had left for college, Shelly turned her abusive ways onto Tori.
Oh, I did wonder when that was going to come into play.
She started subtly, it was things like Tori wouldn't be able to find her homework, not knowing that Shelly had actually destroyed it just so that Tori would have to do it all over again. It was just little things like that. But then she ramped it up, and one night Tori was asleep in bed when Shelly pounced on her and pulled back the covers and shouted, "Would you ever consider killing yourself?" Tori said no, like what the hell? And Shelly just sat there for a while and then left the room. So Tori was terrified, and all she could think of is my mum going to kill me and make it look like suicide?
That's awful.
And bear in mind, this is a kid. This is like an 8-year-old. This isn't like, she shouldn't even know what suicide is.
Absolutely not.
One day when Tori was 8, she was in the kitchen with Shelly. There was, those radios that people used to communicate with people, like on the truckers and stuff like that, and they have the headphones and well, Dave had one of them, but we hardly used it. Sat there hardly used because he was hardly at home anyway. But it was in the kitchen, and Shelly was shouting at Tori for something, probably something trivial that don't know what, and she shoved Tori hard into the radio, and she hit her head, and her head was bleeding, and she's 8. Bearing in mind she's 8, so obviously she started to cry.
Yeah, of course.
I mean, I'm not being funny, but your daughter is 8, and she started crying the other week here because she fell She fell and dropped her teddy. She fell over and dropped her teddy and her teddy got dirty.
Oh, yeah.
And she started crying because of that. So, not to make light of the situation, but an 8-year-old, they hit their head. Of course they're going to be crying.
Of course, absolutely.
And Shelley just stared at her and shouted, you're a pussy, shut up. Like, no, that is awful. Mm-hmm. Although that's probably along the lines of what Mum said to you. Well, maybe not that you're a pussy, but I think she did tell her along the lines of
stop being a baby.
Stop being a baby. Like, and she even had to, I know it's totally off topic, but she even had to go home and hand wash the teddy because my niece didn't want to put it in the washing machine.
Yes.
So it had to be hand washed.
Because he's been there since the day she was born, this teddy, and he's a bit worn.
I know, she's very, what's the word? She's very attached to him.
Yes, she is, bless her. But he got a hand wash, and it's alright.
You should have seen one day, totally off topic here, when she was younger, but she was literally 2 or 3, and she put, I don't know if you remember this, but she was at my house, I was looking after her, and she put Charlie in my washing machine, shut the door and pressed the button. She didn't realise what she was doing because she was just you know what kids are like, pressing buttons and stuff, and she actually put Charlie in the washing machine. She was howling because all she could see was Charlie going round and round, and I was like, well, he's getting a wash now, so I just put some soap powder in and give him a proper wash. But she was howling. Anyway, sorry, well, enough of the lightheartedness.
Yeah.
So one day Shelley had hit Tori with a wooden spoon, and Tori told one of her friends' mum, and the mum confronted Shelley. Mm-hmm. So of course Shelley was absolutely raging about that. Mm-hmm. And she beat Tori with a fishing pole. She hit her so hard that the pole actually broke.
Oh my God, that's awful.
And she told Tori that she was no good, she was ungrateful, and she wished that she had aborted her. Again, abortion, that's not something that an 8-year-old should not even know that word. No. Suicide and abortion, pussy, an 8-year-old should not know those words.
No, and to be thrown at her like those words to be thrown at her like that's awful.
Yeah. So when Tori hit puberty, Shelley would call her into the living room once a month and say, it's time to see your progress. And she would make Tori take off her top so she could see how like her boobs were developing. Mm-hmm. And sometimes she would make her take her knickers off as well. And one time Shelley told her that she needed a lock of her pubic hair for her baby book. I mean, Tori was horrified enough every month, you know what it's like. You don't want to be, when you're hitting puberty, you don't want to be taking your clothes off in front of anybody, even your mum.
Well, exactly.
So that was bad enough. But then she was like, I want a bit of your pubic hair to put in your baby book. And she was horrified. She was like, nah, that's too much. Mm-hmm. Like, I don't want to. No. And it's weird. Uh-huh. And Shelley told her that her sisters had done it. Nikki and Sammy had done it. So you have to do it because they did it. Mm-hmm. And Tori was like, but it's creepy. I don't want to do it. But Shelley just went on and on and on. And Tori knew, like, she was going to have to do it.
Yeah.
So she went into the bathroom with a pair of scissors and came back and handed her mum the hair. And then Shelley just burst into laughter and went, I don't want that. So Tori was humiliated and was like, what? Mm-hmm. And Shelley said she just wanted to see if she could make her do it.
Uh-huh.
Like
she is a sick, twisted woman, like, seriously. Fuck me, that's disgusting.
It is really. Sammy would come home from college at the weekend, so Tori lived for those times. But Nikki never come home, and Tori had stopped wishing that she would come home anyway, because Shelley had totally turned her against Nikki. She told her that Nikki was a monster, mm-hmm. and that Nikki would beat Shelley up, and she would tell Tori that her Gran Lara was mean, and that she treated Shelley like shit when she was a little girl. So she was basically told to hate Lara and Nikki, her sister and her grandmother. They're actually two decent people in the family who loved Tori and treated her well, but she was told that they were horrible and they were monsters and absolutely awful.
Yes.
But when Sammy was at college, like, Shelley would call her every night between 10 and 11, and if Sammy didn't answer, she would call her, like, her boyfriend and, like, track her down. But she would also sometimes call the boyfriend at, like, 3 in the morning to find out if Sammy was there. God. And, like, Sammy was so sick of it, so she wrote Shelley a 4-page letter and basically said that although Shelley seemed to forget quite a lot of what happened over the years, Sammy hadn't. Mm-hmm. She told her that she remembered what Shelley had done to Nikki and Shane, the wallowing, the dancing naked, the hot baths. Shelley preferred to think that Sammy had forgotten all this, but she hadn't. She just hadn't talked about it. You know, she'd let, because obviously she's not going to talk about it over the years, but she'd remembered. So Sammy was basically low-key saying, keep it up and I might just talk. So stop phoning me all the time, stop doing all this. But, you know, Shelley, rather than like owning up to anything, she would just make up other illnesses to try and get sympathy. Like one time she told Sammy that she had lupus. So for anyone who doesn't know what that is, that's an autoimmune disease that attacks the body's tissues and cells, causes a lot of like joint pain, rashes, tiredness.
Yeah.
And Sammy didn't know much about lupus, but she knew that it was serious, so she was worried about her mum. And Shelley also told her that she had a massive ovarian cyst and she was going to need major surgery.
God, she's just so full of shit, man.
I know, but even though Sammy knew that her mum had been lying about the cancers, for some reason she believed about the lupus and the cyst. I don't know why.
Wow, okay.
But she did.
Fair enough.
So she was worried. You know, even though her mother had put her through all this over the years, I suppose she must have still thought, well, she's still my mum at the end of the day, so...
I fucking deserve to be their bloody mother.
Yeah, I know. So funnily enough, Shelley didn't even mention the lupus or the cyst again. So it'd obviously been an excuse just to change the subject, because at the time, this is when Sammy's accusing her of abuse. So she's like, to distract her from that, oh, I'm not well, blah, blah, blah. So Sammy realised that she'd been lying. And one day when she was at home, she decided to have a look about her mum's room just to see if she could like find anything that would prove that she was a liar. And she found a small rubbish bag under Shelley's bed, and inside it was bones and ash. So she knew those had to have been Kathy's. So why would she have kept them?
Like a trophy?
I don't know, because she'd like sent Nikki and Shane back to the burn pile like 3 or 4 times to make sure that was totally empty of all the...
And obviously David...
And David went to the beach.
Yeah. So why had she...
I don't know, it was weird. So, you know, but Sammy was like, well, I've got all this on her. She's just...
compiling it all.
Yeah, exactly. Just kind of gathering all the information if she ever did need it, I suppose. So one day Shelley had called Sammy at college and they were just chatting when Shelley told her that she had a new friend, a man called Ron Woodworth. So Shelley had actually got herself a job as a caseworker helping the elderly.
Right.
And there was a lady being evicted from her home, so she must have been her caseworker.
Right.
And this guy, Ron, was helping her rehome her... She had dozens of cats, and he actually said... Or Shelley said, or somebody said, that they thought it was about 80 cats. I'm not sure if that's an exaggeration,
Holy
but
shit,
apparently, apparently it was a lot of cats. And this Ron guy was helping her rehome the cats because she was being evicted. So Shelley had actually taken a lot of the lady's stuff out of to store for her, and one of their... She was like, I'll take your stuff, I'll store it for you, and I've got loads of outbuildings and stuff. And she's like, oh, do you want to move in with us? With me, I'll look after you, but luckily the woman was like, no, I want my own place, you know. And Sammy was like, thank fuck for that, because she knew if this woman had moved into her mum's house, then
she would become the next victim.
Yeah, exactly. She probably would have done exactly what she did to Kathy. So yeah, this woman didn't move in. But unfortunately, Ron, he was going through a bit of a rough patch, and he was currently unemployed. He had been a copy editor at the local paper and he was a licensed caregiver, but his dad had died in June 1996, and after that he changed, like he just couldn't concentrate on anything, he lost his job, like he sank into a depression. And his long-term partner, Gary, he just couldn't take it any longer, and he left, he split up with Ron, and Ron moved into his mum's trailer. So that's where he was living when Shelley had met him. So Sammy and Tori met him and they liked him. He had a few cats of his own. He was in his mid-50s. He wore glasses. He was balding. But he had like a sort of ponytail at the back. He like wore lots of jewellery. Had a bit of a belly hanging over his trousers, but he seemed quite proud of his... He looked after himself, as in he was quite proud of his appearance. Yeah. He liked to look nice. He was fascinated with Egypt, and Tori would go over to him... Well, it was his mum's trailer, because obviously he was living with his mum, but... like Tori would go over and visit, and they would talk about the gods and mythology, and she would look through his books that he had on the subject. They would play cards and checkers, and she started calling him Uncle Ron because they got really close. But unfortunately, over time, Ron got deeper and deeper into debt, and he fell out with his mum, and she kicked him out of the trailer, so he was homeless, and she also got rid of his cats. So he had been her caregiver, and she complained about him to the healthcare authority, and I'll going to get back to that in a minute. So, because he was homeless, Shelly said that he could move in with them until he got himself back on his feet. So she set him up a room, gave him a bed, a chest of drawers, a bedside table. She didn't bother to tell Dave, but then Dave hardly ever came home these days.
Well, I was just going to say, because he was
he didn't even know Ron. He had never even heard his name being mentioned, but yet one day he came home and this guy was living in his house. So he was like, excuse me? Like, what's going on?
Who are you?
And although Dave didn't really actually care, Shelley was quick to tell him that Ron was gay, because, you know, she must have been thinking, no, it's fine, it's not like that. And he's like, I don't give a fuck.
No.
Like, Dave wouldn't have even been bothered, even if there had been something going on. He probably would have been happy. He would have preferred it, because he could have checked out of that relationship.
100%.
And
but she wouldn't have that, because she needs his money.
Well, yeah, that's
wants
true.
his money.
But he had checked out his marriage a long time ago. He would be quite happy to get rid of Shelley, but he said that he was waiting for Tori to grow up before he left. But
Right.
I reckon a lot of it had to do with fear as well.
Probably, yeah.
We all know that she wouldn't have let go easily of him at all.
Yeah.
And he knew what she was capable of, and plus, she probably would have blamed...
Everything on him.
Yeah, exactly. She'd probably like, oh, by the way, you know, Kathy Loreno's dead, and Dave... You know, so...
Yeah, exactly.
I think it was just easier for him just to stay away and just come home every now and again to see Tori as well, probably. So, of course, when Ron first moved in, Shelley was all sweetness and light. Ron was happy to do things for her. Obviously, he was so grateful to her for taking him in, so he was quite happy to run about after her, doing things for her. But her niceness literally lasted a week.
Surprised it lasted that long.
I know. She started snapping at him, and Tori said that it looked like he irritated her mum, like she just kept getting irritated with him. And then the name calling began. She would call him homophobic slurs and tell him that he was worthless and that he disgusted her, and to stay away from Tori because he was a bad influence. And I'm thinking, well, if he's such a bad influence, tell him to move out. It's your house, your door.
Exactly.
But then the physical abuse started. Shelley would hit Ron for the slightest thing. She also stopped making meals for him and would just hand him toast and water, and twice a day she would make him take a handful of pills.
Fuck's sake.
When Tori asked what the pills were for, Shelley told her they were sleeping pills to calm Ron down. Calm down from what? Tori certainly didn't know, because she liked Ron. She got on with him. He was good to her. You know, it wasn't like he was this bad-tempered, angry person. So then Shelley kicked Ron out of his bedroom, took away all his stuff, and told him he would be sleeping on the floor of the computer room. Ron spent most of his time out in the yard doing chores, and Shelley told him that he now had to ask for permission to use the bathroom.
Oh, for fuck's sake, here we go again.
But when he did ask, she would say no, not the one in the house. So and told him to go and do his business outside. So he had to ask to go to do his business, but he had to do it outside anyway. So what? And if he needed to go during the night, he would pee into a bottle and hide it until he could get rid of it the following day. And Tori actually did the same as well, even though she wasn't the subject of abuse anymore, as Ron was getting it now. She still didn't want to anger her mum, so if she needed the toilet in the night, she was too scared to go to the toilet, because the toilet was next to her room, and she was scared in case she woke her mum up. So because if she woke her mum up, then she would be angry, so she would pee in a bottle as well.
Fuck's sake.
I mean, how bad is that you can't even just get up in the night to go to the toilet?
Awful. That's basic human right.
So every now and then, Shelley would ask Tori if she remembered Kathy. Tori had seen baby pictures of her with Kathy, and she knew that Kathy had been her mum's friend, but she didn't know what had happened to her because she was a baby at the time. So she kept wondering why her mum kept bringing her up. But she would ask Tori if anyone had asked her about Kathy, like someone at school or a neighbour. So I'm assuming that Shelley was just paranoid that people would be wondering where Kathy was, so that's why she's saying to Tori, has anybody asked you about her? But Tori didn't know anything anyway.
No.
So even if they did ask, all she knew was this was her mum's friend that used to live with them, and she went off to live with her boyfriend.
Yeah, exactly.
That's all she knew anyway. In the summer of 2001, one of Ron's old friends, Sandra, moved to a place just over an hour away from Shelley's house, so she wanted to catch up with Ron because she hadn't seen him for a while. and knew that he was staying at the Knoteks. So she called quite a few times, but every time Shelly answered, she would say that Ron was out or he was in the yard. So Sandra would say, well, can you get him to call me back? But he never did. So she was getting pissed off with this.
Yeah.
So one day Sandra called again, and Shelly said that she didn't know where Ron was, and Sandra had obviously had enough, and she was like, do you know what? If you don't get Ron to call me back, then I'm going to call the police and I'm going to file a missing persons report, because this is ridiculous. I've been trying to get a hold of him for however long. So funnily enough, a few hours later, Ron called Sandra back. He told her that his debt had gotten worse and he was having some legal issues, so he was hiding in Shelley's attic from the police. Sandra heard breathing and realised that Shelly was listening in on the other line, so she told her to fuck off and get off the phone.
Yeah.
So Shelly hung up. So Sandra knew something wasn't right, so she offered Ron a job. Do you know when I'm reading things, sometimes my eyes go further ahead to where I should be?
I know, I've done that.
Yeah, so she offered Ron a job at the restaurant that she owned and said that he could live with her. But Ron declined the offer. He told her that Shelley was helping him find a job house sitting in Seattle. And they chatted for a bit longer and then hung up. Sandra was worried and didn't know what to do after all. But, sorry. Ron was a grown man. If he was really in trouble with the police, then she didn't want to contact the police because she didn't want to get him in even more trouble. So she was like, shit, what do I do? So a week later, Shelley called Sandra and basically told her that she was no good for Ron. She was stressing him out and to stay out of his life. Sandra was like, nah, Ron needs somebody to look out for him and you're not doing it. But Shelley just hung up. As soon as she's confronted with something, hang up the phone.
See you later.
So Ron was upset about his mum, Catherine, complaining about him, when she'd kicked him out and she'd complained about him not being... Because he had been her caregiver when they'd been living, so she'd complained about him not doing a good enough job, basically. So obviously... he wasn't happy about it. I mean, I don't know how true it was. I don't, because he does seem like a decent guy, so I don't know if the mother was just expecting too much or if she was lying about it. I don't know. But Shelley told him that he better do something about it because that would be embarrassing if charges were brought and he would be ruined. So before any charges could be filed, Shelley made Ron write a list to defend himself against the allegations.
Right.
So the most notable thing that his mum had complained about was how he didn't keep her trailer clean and that his cats had brought in an infestation of fleas. But he insisted that he had kept it clean enough, up, what he thought was up to her standards, and his cats were indoor cats, so they couldn't have brought the fleas in. And he blamed the next door's dogs for the infestation.
Right.
And he also said that the infestation was actually after he moved out.
Right, okay.
So... So as I said, that's how I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know the situation between Ron and his mum.
No.
So, but Ron didn't know it. But Shelley was driving a wedge between him and his family. She was friendly with his mum, Catherine. She was sooking up to Catherine, and she would actually call his other family members who she'd never met in Michigan, and she made them think that she was on Catherine's side. So
she's just something else, honestly.
Yeah, she told Ron's brother that Catherine was like the mum that she never had because her mum had died when she was 2.
Yeah, no, she didn't.
Well, exactly. She neglected to tell him that she was actually 13 when her biological mum died, but she had been brought up by Lara since she was 6.
Yeah.
So she did have a mum.
Yes, she did, absolutely.
She came across as a loving, sweet woman who only wanted the best for Ron and his family. And she told him that she would look after him and he could stay with her as long as he wanted and hopefully be back on his feet soon enough and, he'd make up with his mum and everything like that. So she was acting like the...
Oh, yeah. Fine. She's good at that, though.
Yeah, she's lovely. She's wonderful. Shelley told Ron's family that all she expected in return for him staying was for him just to help out by feeding the animals. So, of course, they thought that was wonderful of her because she's letting him stay rent-free in her house. All he had to do was feed the animals. She was going to help him get back on his feet. So, obviously, his family are like, what a wonderful person she is. In October 2001, Shelley made Ron write a letter to his mum. He wrote to his mum that he wished that he'd never done anything to help her. He accused her of stabbing him in the back because of her cruelty to his cats. He also said that he couldn't stand the sight of her and that he considered her as his murderer. He said that in 1997, his ex, Gary, had heartlessly killed him as a man when he abandoned him, And he said, well, congratulations. On October the 1st, 2001, you finished the murder by destroying my pride in being a Woodworth. He then said that he no longer had a mother. She died the day that she killed his cats. So, although he's accusing her of killing the cats, I think what actually happened was she just let the cats out after he left. So she wasn't actually cruel to them in that way, actually physically hurting them. But she let them out, which in my eyes kind of is cruel because they were indoor cats. They didn't know how to look after themselves outside.
Yeah.
So I get that in that way it's cruel. But I just want to clarify that she wasn't like physically abusing cats. And a few days later, he wrote another letter where he wrote Madam instead of Mum. So he was addressing her as Madam now.
Right.
And he told her that he was moving to Seattle where, quote, maybe I can forget my traitorous mother, end quote. He then, I mean, this is all Shelley, this is Shelley telling it right.
I don't for a moment think it was actually him.
He then wrote a letter to his brother and sister and told them how their mother had been cruel to him and his cats and that now he couldn't trust her and he couldn't stand the sight of her. He said that he was washing his hands of her and wouldn't be caring for her any longer, and that he was so angry that in the next few months he was going to legally change his name and move to Seattle under his new name, and that he would tell them his new name, but they weren't allowed to tell their mum. He provided Shelley's number if they wanted to reach him, but he said that for now they would only be communicating through Shelley. Handy that, isn't it, for Shelley? He also said, quote, my heart aches, but I need to do this, or I could do something far more serious, and right now I do not want to do. No, and right now that I do not want to do, end quote. Now, I thought that was actually a suicide threat. Why can't I talk? I think I've been talking too much today.
Yes.
I thought that was a suicide threat, but his siblings took that as a threat to his mum's safety, to Catherine's safety.
Oh, okay.
I don't know whether it was or not. I don't know.
No.
So on the 9th of October 2001, Ron again wrote to his mum and it said, quote, Madam, this is to inform you that I am giving Mrs. Michelle Knotek permission to move all my personal property from your home and storage building. What she does with it is none of your business. Once she has removed everything, you will receive no more communication from me. I pray that you will live for 100 years in perfect health, both physically and mentally, and that for every day of the rest of your life, you will remember the cruelty of what you did to me. You are now their responsibility, not mine. I was once your loving son, end quote. So Ron was alone. He had now rejected his family and he didn't have anyone in his life except for Shelley.
Is that the end?
That's the end of part 4.
Whoa.
What an absolute monster. I can't wait to be actually done with this case.
Yeah, like, I just have no words for her. She's vile, horrible.
Monster. Like, there
Absolutely.
just isn't words to describe her. Like, there's no even any point. I've told you what I've had to say about her.
Exactly.
And we will be back next week with part 5. And I'm hoping that there's going to be maybe 2 at the most. 2 episodes at the most left of this mini-series.
Yes.
So thank you to everybody for listening. And we'll see you next time.
See you next time.
Bye.
Bye.